Today's show is sponsored in part by Fulton Commons. We have had a co-working space there for a while. It's over in Manchester in this historic little neighborhood, and it's really thoughtfully decorated, like actual art on the walls, bright pops of color, these historic maps and eclectic furniture, and just so much gorgeous natural light. It really is a great place to be able to buckle down and get some work done, but also just like the experience while you're there. And all of this, of course, is just on the main floor, because downstairs is something totally different. It's a shared commercial kitchen, so fully stocked with equipment and appliances, storage, big fridges, prep areas. If you are just starting out in the food space and you've maybe outgrown your house but don't have it in you yet to go get an expensive lease on your own, this could be the perfect place for you to hone your craft and get to know other entrepreneurs. Also, if you are co-working upstairs, it can mean delicious samples. Check out Fulton Commons for yourself, for your small business, and for your food production needs. Visit fultonpgh.com to request a tour.
Today on CityCast Pittsburgh, it is a popular season for cemetery tours, and there are some beautiful historic burial grounds here in our region. But we are also home to the state's first and only fully green cemetery, meaning everything is eco-friendly. Host Megan Harris got to go visit the space and talk to some of its keepers about how green burial works, how friends and family can get involved in the process, and why more and more people are choosing to go out sustainably. It's Thursday, October 9th. I'm Mallory Falk, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about.
I am here with the CityCast Pittsburgh team at Penn Forest Natural Burial Park in Verona. It is a beautiful day. We've just gotten back from a tour of the grounds, and I am here with the grounds manager, Thom Wood. Hello.
Hello.
Assistant manager, Deanna Mance. Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm great. And manager, Laura Faessel.
Hello.
Thank you all so much for having us here today. What we talk about may be a little gruesome for some people, but I try to keep in mind that, dying is also part of humanity. So, this is just all kind of part of the circle, right? Laura, I want to start with you. What does it mean to have a green burial?
So green burial is a way of caring for the dead with minimal environmental impact. So that means that everything that goes into the ground has to be biodegradable, including what you're wearing and what you're buried in. We don't take any bodies with a toxic embalming fluid. Most bodies come to us without any type of embalming fluid at all. They're just kept cold before the burial. And we don't use the vaults or liners in the graves. Also, there are no big upright headstones that have been shipped in from far away. If you would like a marker here, it has to be wood or stone that's indigenous to southwestern Pennsylvania.
Oh, wow. Even the stone.
Yeah.
The property here is it's stunning. It's larger than you think it would be. And there's so many pieces of it, right? Like you've got a farm, you've got flowers, you've got hiking trails.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that y'all maybe uniquely offer that traditional burial sites maybe don't?
There's a lot more family and friend involvement that we can offer here than at a conventional cemetery. So, for example, in December, we had someone who felt it was really important and cathartic to hand dig their father's grave in December. And we supported them in every which way.
That is so challenging. But I understand wanting to feel that experience, even in a harsh condition.
Right. And, we provided as many tools and a tent even for coverage because it was snowing. And he actually wanted to do it on his own for the most part. So we just kind of hung out with him every now and then and checked in on him to make sure he was doing okay and guided him through the process. So that's an exceptional example. But we also have a lot of families who will backfill by hand. So they're not opening the ground themselves.
Sprinkle the dirt or
do
maybe
it completely.
Shovel.
Yeah. Right. There's the symbolic gesture of backfilling. But we've had burials here where they backfilled until it was completely filled in. and pallbearing and lowering, which we all do by hand. You might see, I would call them devices at a conventional cemetery for the lowering. They're kind of put on a harness that is then mechanically lowered. But here we use lowering straps, and we invite families and friends to help with that process. However, if families don't feel comfortable, we step in and take care of everything for them. And the graveside services are really unique. Oftentimes people do services away from a conventional cemetery. They might, provide some kind of service at a synagogue, a church, some kind of community rec building. And because this place is so beautiful, and we're just so willing to provide things like a tent or chairs, people will have a full out graveside service here, meaning that they could have music playing. Some people actually bring instruments. They'll do sing-alongs. They'll have easels with their loved one's portrait or a painting they made once upon a time. Family members will decorate the burial container, either making a handmade quilt or putting like painted handprints like on a cardboard casket, for example. So there's just so much more involvement in the process in a way that we don't typically experience in a normal burial.
Yeah.
Yeah, Thom, what about you?
I think everyone's just more engaged with the process here. I think that having that freedom to do something a little more expressive, to do something a little less cookie cutter out here, and our willingness to stick around with that. Also, just our presence. I think you go to most cemeteries and there's no one there to really be there with you. We have our office here. There's someone here every day, dawn till dusk, for the most part. And we're always happy to help with a golf cart ride, a chair, water. It's the simple things. And just, I think the fact that we're here means a lot.
Tell me about like the logistics, like, kind of like the beginning of the process. Where do folks tend to find you in that? And how does that conversation proceed?
Folks can find us a lot of times by Googling green burial or natural burial.
Is that getting more common? Like, I wonder, because I feel like I've seen folks talk about it, just like in social media spaces, for example, not necessarily in reference to y'all, but like all over the country.
Yeah, for sure. The interest in green burial has really increased over the years. I noticed it, I want to say in 2019, really start to pick up here, interest-wise, and it's just gone up every year since. And I know that the first green cemetery opened up in 1996, and I believe it was North Carolina. And I think in 2023, they were at about 340, green cemeteries in North America. Now we're at 477 in North America. So it's really growing. It's really spreading.
We're kind of reaching the point now where it's foreseeable in the near future that we will be the elders at doing this.
Which is wild, right? I mean, I'm looking at a placard on a desk right now that says established 2011.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. We're still pretty young, but we're the ones with all the experience.
Right. But Nancy and Pete this year won an award from the Green Burial Council.
The landowners here
Right.
that got this started.
Yeah, because they've really pioneered a lot of things in the field and in the space. And they've been such a great resource. There've been people are always coming here to visit, even internationally. Mm-hmm. There have been folks who've come here to see what our process is like, and we're always open to that. We always feel like more green burial cemeteries are better for us, better for the industry, better for people and the planet.
Yeah, so when you were asking about how people find us, Nancy and Pete really, they championed spreading the word and educating people on green burial and natural cemeteries. And what I mean by that is they didn't start just out the gate purchasing land and starting a green cemetery. They actually started a nonprofit called Green Burial Pittsburgh. And the intention was to gain interest in green burial. So they would host like community public meetings, maybe in the basement of a church somewhere, and getting a lot of supporters, a lot of excitement around the idea that they can have a natural burial. And so we continue that practice. Honestly, a funeral home calling us for the first time and saying, we've never done a green funeral burial, walk us through it. That's an opportunity to educate someone, especially in the funeral industry.
I bet. Yeah. Like I was just thinking, like, do funeral homes get involved at all for y'all?
There's probably about 15 in Western Pennsylvania who are certified for doing green burials. And we don't have to work with somebody that's certified. We're happy to work with anybody, but there are 15 that are certified. And we're not a funeral home here. We don't do anything that a funeral home would do. So most families still use a funeral home to prepare their loved one, to get them ready to come here. But they don't have to. They can do a home funeral. That's legal in Pennsylvania. And that's where your family and friends would care for your body after you die and then bring you here ready for burial.
How do you think people typically react when they find out what you do, like what this space really is?
I mean, for me personally, people are fascinated by it. I haven't ever had anyone be outwardly creeped out. Even my folks who are very traditional people who don't, they're just very waspy. I love them to death. They're wonderful human beings. But they're
a type of humans that just don't like to talk about this sort of thing.
Exactly. And but they absolutely, were just fascinated and really happy for me that I'm working in this place, doing something really meaningful.
During the tours, we do our best to create a safe space for people to ask any questions they may have. And so I often find when people come here for the first time, they're a little hesitant at first. But by the end of the tour, they're asking me all kinds of questions.
I bet.
No matter how morbid, we're always happy to answer. And it really just opens it up for them to explore the possibilities of what it means to have a green burial.
Yeah, I mean, I get why it's an attractive thing to folks. Like they come here, they engage with a tour, even if they aren't totally sure yet, right, what they want. I mean, if nothing else, this is just like such a serene place to think about something like that for the first time.
Right. And the fact that you can be buried amongst the trees, under the canopy of trees. I think a lot of people come here with the excitement of knowing that when they die, they can go back to nature in what I believe to be in the way that we were intended to go. The other thing too is I've had people who were like building up the courage to come here with the intent to purchase a plot. One person in particular told me that they had driven into our parking lot a handful of times and, they were having a hard time getting out of the car and coming down to the office. And then just one day he did it and we went out there and we walked the property and he was just so relieved. He was like, it's not as scary as I thought it would be. And I think that green burial allows people to kind of feel that, that it's unique and there's some control, there's some agency on how you want your body cared for. And so I think most people walk away being pretty excited about it.
Today's episode is supported in part by the Pittsburgh Opera. If you have been looking to dig into the world of operatic performance, the perfect show is coming up. The Pittsburgh Opera is Puccini's La Bohème at the Benedum Center. It's a passionate love story between the seamstress Mimi and the poet Rodolfo, set in Paris, where else? While you're at the theater, you can feel all the feels, and the show will hopefully make you laugh, bring you to tears. There's so much captivating music and just a riveting story. It's a really timeless performance. In fact, this opera, I didn't realize this, inspired the musical Rent. So if you are a fan of that, definitely book a seat at this. Tickets start at just $20 and performances run from October 18th through the 26th. There's even free childcare at the Sunday matinee. So if that sweetens the deal for you, make sure to book it in advance. Learn more at pittsburghopera.org/citycast. CityCast Pittsburgh is brought to you today by YWCA Greater Pittsburgh. If you're not familiar, this organization does such a huge variety of work here. And if you want to see some of it firsthand, there's no better event than the YWCA's annual Equity Awards. This award is all about honoring our local leaders who have really showcased their mission of eliminating racism, empowering women, and promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. Everyone is invited to the luncheon and awards presentation November 14th. It's 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at the Westin downtown, so fans fancy. They're going to be raffling off some gift baskets, and kudos in advance to this year's honorees. All proceeds are going to go back to YWCA Greater Pittsburgh and all of their important work, including helping people find housing, early education programs, and so much more. Learn more and get your tickets at ywcapgh.org. Today's episode is sponsored by Liberty Magic, Pittsburgh's premier speakeasy theater that's all about elevating the art of magic. They're bringing back a beloved performer, Michael Misko, who calls himself a bit of a mischief maker. He's going to be putting on his show, I Laugh in the Face of Magic, which blends sleight of hand with extremely dry roasted stand-up. He says like 90% comedy, 10% magic. And for those feeling extra adventurous, consider upgrading to the Skeleton Key VIP experience. You'll get front row tickets, talk about close-up magic, plus an exclusive post-show meet and greet. And either way, you're going to leave asking whether the whole thing was real magic or just really funny. Definitely give Liberty Magic a try. People always show up there looking for the unexpected, and this show is going to have that extra special blend of comedy and showmanship. Get your tickets at trustarts.org/magic before they disappear. Well, let's talk about what you can and can't do here. What kind do you have caskets, and what can they be made of?
You can be buried in a coffin or a shroud. It has to be biodegradable. So for coffins, that means all wood coffins with no metal or varnish, wicker coffins, cardboard coffins.
Where do you buy that sort of thing?
Well, a lot of people get them through the funeral homes.
Yeah.
But you can also buy them online. You can make your own.
I feel like a funeral showroom, like because I've been to a few, like they don't have that sort of material just like on display by and large. It's usually the big, huge, shiny things, you know?
Yeah.
They are
Well,
starting to.
Are they?
I've seen pictures because there was an article, I forget where I saw it, where they had, the big fancy ones, and then in the corner was a simple plain wooden one. Mm-hmm. It was untreated and unvarnished, and it said it was for natural. It was a Kinkarako casket, yeah, that was displayed next to the big fancy metal ones, and it was explicitly for green burial.
Can they make their own, for example?
They can make their own for sure. We actually facilitated a coffin making workshop a number of years ago with a local woodworker, and a couple of people came. They made their own coffins for their burials, and they just take them
piece in the house.
They take them home and store them at home. You can use them as a bookshelf, as a coffee table,
Halloween decorations until you need it for the real thing.
Exactly. And that local woodworker, he still makes coffins for families. And then shrouds. We've had families just get like a sheet of muslin and wrap their loved one up in that for a burial. They can wrap them up in, cotton sheets. We did a burial earlier this year where the person was buried in a 100-year-old quilt that was made by his grandmother. But you can also buy shrouds, from suppliers or, through the funeral homes.
So for cremated remains, we can bury cremated remains in the ground as well. And
so that's like a slightly different process, right? Than burying a whole body.
Right. But you can still have a biodegradable urn. And we did a burial for someone where their loved one actually crocheted and knitted the urn. All natural. So, 100% cotton, silk, wool. These are materials that you would have to use, of course, but it's gorgeous. And so the fact that people feel empowered to make these, this like final vessel, it's kind of like, when I had my child, there was a cradle that was handed down through generation and generation. And sometimes I think of these containers as like that final cradle, right? And to be able to participate in the making of that is really empowering and really beautiful gesture. Not to say that everyone needs to have a handmade casket or shroud, but we're open to it,
Yeah. And I mean, I think it sounds like that's the theme, right? Like you're open to so many things and so many ways for families and loved ones to be involved in the process of death. I mean, what about like clothes, for example? Can people be buried in like favorite garments and things?
They can, but they do have to be made out of biodegradable materials.
Which I feel like that is a challenge in itself to find that in any of our closets, really.
It's a lot of polyester and rayon and plastic buttons, things of that nature.
Any heirloom jewelry, things like that. Like, I'm thinking of like wedding bands, for example.
They could be buried in a wedding band, but we otherwise try to limit jewelry wearing whenever they're being buried. We try to put as much biodegradable into the ground as we can.
We've had people ask, like, can I be naked?
Can they be naked?
What I told this person, we had a good laugh about it, but I said, Laura and I, we would be comfortable with that. You might want to check in with anyone who's planning on attending that burial.
I mean, well, actually, I was sort of curious, like, because there's no chemicals, like, can it be open casket? Like, are there viewings in that way?
Sure, you can have a viewing with a natural burial. It's not quite like viewings of the past where there are multiple days for hours, every day at a time.
Yeah.
So for a green burial, it'll depend on the funeral home that you use, but it'll be viewing only one day for an hour or two in length. And I believe it can be open casket. Depending on the situation.
Might need to be a little quicker, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I've had people report that they find that doing open casket, or not even open casket, but just seeing their loved ones through the process, physically seeing their body through the process of a natural embalming, can be more meaningful. I know that gives some people trepidation to not see folks quite as made up. But, I think you're perceiving the person maybe a little more accurately in where they're at.
I mean, on the flip side, like having attended so many funerals in the past, which is a blessing, right? Yeah. It means I've gotten the opportunity to love and be loved by so many people. Sometimes seeing them made up in those final moments is more jarring.
A bit uncanny valley.
Yeah, like that's not the person I knew, and it's not the person they were in those final days, and that's fine, because that's what someone needed. But right. It is a different experience sometimes. Like I want to see you in your overalls, no makeup, and like that's who you were. Yeah. What is this blazer? What are we doing here? What is this lipstick? Yeah.
What's this weird hairdo?
The hairdo by someone that never met you, right. Because they're the ones that work with that funeral home. It's a different experience.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I would say if you decided to do a home funeral, you can have visitations by your loved ones all day, however many days you have the body at home for. People can come and visit. It's a little different than at a funeral home where it's, 1 hour viewing, a 2 hour viewing, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then you'll see the body in its natural state.
Yeah, my understanding of a home funeral, too, is that, like you said, it's not going to be what we're all used to seeing, which is someone that's really been made up and made to look a certain way that resembles somewhat of life. But I know that there are some local funeral home directors who do home funerals, and there's ways to kind of make it more approachable. And for some people, it's not important for their body to be seen. I know for my husband, for example, he doesn't want a viewing. For me, I'm like, you at least have to look at me or take a peek, just, see me in all my glory, you know?
Well, it's funny how all these traditions evolve too, right? Like I'm assuming home funerals were the norm until fairly recently in human history, right?
There's a lot of interesting history there with the 19th century Victorian parlor funeral. Especially if you look into that. I don't want to get into the weeds on it, but it used to be exceedingly the norm for people to simply have their funerals in their living room. And you would just be on a table or a door set upon two chairs. It's much more what we've done throughout human history than what we do now. There are folks who've been very much a part of their process of burying their loved ones here to the point where they're helping to wash and prepare the body. And from everyone I've spoken to that has done that or been involved to that level, it's been an insanely meaningful process. But that's not for everyone. It's a range.
Yeah, it's as hands-on or as hands-off as you want. What about types of ceremonies? It sounds like almost anything can go. Like, do you do different types of like religious observations, for example?
Yeah, so we're non-dominational and we're all inclusive of family traditions and religions. We have people of a lot of mixed faith buried here. We do have a Jewish burial area. It's not an Orthodox Jewish burial ground, but it was blessed by a rabbi. That was something that was asked from our community to facilitate, and we were happy to do it. We have people of Muslim faith buried here, and whatever they need during that process, which is very unique. You know, they have a very special, unique ritual to how they bury their loved ones. We help to support them in any way that we can. We have a lot of environmentalists buried here. I mean, all kinds of people are buried here. You know?
Anyone can be buried here?
Anyone can be buried here. Yeah, yeah. What Nancy Chubb, the owner of the cemetery, likes to say, we want the people who want to be here to be buried here.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're like Laura and I, we're not out here upselling. You know, we want to make sure that when you come here and you're making this really big decision about what your, where your eternal home is going to be, that it's a place that you feel is where you're meant to be.
What about the cost and how that might compare to something that someone might experience in a more conventional burial space?
We're actually very transparent about our pricing. It's all available on our website, and I believe will continue to be. And again, not trying to upsell, but pre-planning can make so much sense because you can plan for that a little more. You know, every business has costs that go up. So if you do it now, you lock in that cost.
Yeah, I've heard that like you can purchase at like whatever the rate is at the time. Is like that's what I've heard from like more customary burial spaces. I mean, full disclosure, I think the first thing I ever owned as a human in this world was my own burial plot. I remember going to visit it as a small child, a few yards away from where my whole family was buried, and it was just a natural, normal thing, right? But I'm guessing my family is not the norm in that way.
No.
I'm betting you guys talk a lot of folks through this process for the very first time.
We do indeed talk them through for the very first time. Occasionally we'll get people who are like your family that, you know, they've had a lot at another cemetery for years that their parents or grandparents bought for them. But it's a new thing for a lot of people, planning for your own death than somebody else's death. But I can talk a little bit more about the costs if you like.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Typically, we may be on average with conventional cemeteries cost-wise for lots and interment fees, but, you know, you don't have to pay for the embalming. You're not paying for the vaults or liners in the graves. You're not paying for a big fancy coffin.
Or a big fancy headstone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where you're gonna
I
sit.
just buried a loved one, and I think the total cost was somewhere in excess of $16,000.
Yeah, this gives you a lot more control over that process. You know, it is possible in the state of Pennsylvania to do a home funeral. And then, you know, as long as you take care of the transfer legally, you could have your funeral at home and then come straight here.
And you'll save a lot.
You'll save a lot of money. But it does take some planning, and we've worked with people in the past on that, on what they need. There are some also local funeral directors who are willing to help with that process, even not burying at home, even having a funeral at home. And we just like being a part of that.
Yeah. I mean, if someone is hearing any of this and they're interested, like how early would you recommend they reach out to you? Like, is there an age? Is there a life experience? Is there like a moment that the light clicks on and you're like, oh, maybe I need to get my stuff together?
I mean, I would say maybe the youngest person I've ever done a pre-planning tour with, maybe 30s. They were in their 30s, which I think is maybe like exceptionally young. Not a bad idea, though. I mean, listen, everyone dies and the bodies must go somewhere, right?
And we've all seen news stories over the last like 20 years about like a lot of traditional spaces are just full.
Right.
Not as badly in Pittsburgh, but like that's just a thing that's coming all over the country, that like a lot of traditional spaces just, they can't fit a lot more.
Right. Yeah. And for us, I mean, we could fit probably close to 15,000 people, maybe more, at full capacity.
Which I think I saw you're at about 400 now. So really early in that phase.
Yeah. We have about over 1,000 plots claimed for.
So lots of space left.
Yeah. And, but I think that pre-planning age ranges, I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Laura? Maybe people typically somewhere between their 60s and 80s, I often see. I don't think it's too early. I already have my arrangements made out. I was even crunching numbers just to see on average, like what my burial would cost, knowing what I know about myself and what I would like. And I think I came to roughly somewhere between $7,000 to $9,000. And there's a range there because I think 7,000 is probably if I don't do like a big party, like I'm not paying for people to go out to lunch afterwards, or, like we're throwing some kind of big event on behalf of me.
I love that you're planning ahead for your party that you're not attending. So like, that's great.
Yeah. But you do have to plan ahead if you want to be that intentional, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You got to have a catering budget. I need to feed people on my way out the door.
That's right. I am an artist. And I have all kinds of symbolic rituals that my husband's going to have to perform. And he knows all about it already.
So excited for David.
I know. He's kind of like the opposite. He's like, listen, just tell me where to go and you can bury me there. My only request is if it's a Steelers football game and people don't have to go to my burial if it's a Steelers game. They can stay home and watch the game because I think, he doesn't like to have to do things he doesn't want to do during a Steelers game.
I can already see that opposites attracted here.
Yes, absolutely.
I love this for your relationship. Yeah. Do you, Thom, or you, Laura, do y'all have your final arrangements made? Everybody in this room, I would say, is fairly young.
I don't have mine made yet, but I do know what I want to do. My partner has instructions on the kind of party that they're going to throw.
For when you die or for when they die?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, the absolute rager that's going to happen. But I will say this: a lot of folks have been, a lot more intentional about this process and about death care in general. A lot of people are having their funerals before they're dead. A lot of people are having, goodbye parties, while they're still somewhat healthy. And I think that's a beautiful, wonderful thing that I would very much like to do, because I think it's, kind of a waste. What's the one of the worst Irish curses is may no one show up to your funeral. And the idea that you would get to experience what that's going to be like and how much people actually love you while you're still here. I want to do that.
I think the big takeaway about, at least for us, and wanting to make sure that people are aware of the value of pre-planning their final arrangements is that it actually doesn't have to feel so daunting and overwhelming.
And it just helps you really look through the process of death. It is not easy to die in America, nor is it cheap. Mm-hmm. And thinking about these things ahead of time, as difficult as it can be, is just a huge burden off of the people you leave behind.
And the same goes for experiencing death and burial. Like, we do our best here to welcome people in and feel inclusive and make it a space that doesn't feel so scary. When people come out here to purchase their plots ahead of time, and this is a true story, it was a Saturday, a husband and wife came in, they don't have children, their next of kins live far away, they're making plans for themselves. And at the end of our tour and they're purchasing of their plots, the wife said, I didn't know this could be so fun. And that's what I want people to feel when they're making decisions around their death and dying. Not to say that people can't grieve, they should. It's a process that can take a very long time. And I think that's important to hold space for. But for people to walk away feeling a little lighter and, that they not only accomplished something, but it doesn't feel as scary as I thought it would.
Yeah. There is that old saying, right, that like funerals and similar things are for the living to some extent. Mm-hmm. So why not put your final mark on this moment, this party for some people, but this occasion to kind of say your final goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that I'm the newest one to this industry out of anyone here. Deanna,
you were a chef.
I was a chef. Yeah.
So you've been a true service worker in every way.
Oh yeah. No, this is my retirement. This is, my customers are great now. They don't complain at all. But seriously, Deanna, you've worked in the Deaf Cafe and the death care space for a while, and Laura's been here for 8 years now. Mm-hmm. To see the work that you guys have done to really think about death in a more holistic way, because I think that's kind of the broader picture. People are thinking more critically and have been for a while now about what they eat, what they wear, what are the ethical impacts of those things, what are the impacts on the planet, on equity. And this is just an extension of that. It's pushing that to the end of your life and beyond it. What kind of legacy are you going to leave, and what impact does that leave on the planet? And if we can facilitate that for people, I think that's the greatest thing we can do.
Well, thank you all so much for inviting us into your space. Thank you to all the tenants here who let us come by and share the day with them. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for coming out.
Yeah, we loved having you. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, this has been great.
Don't be strangers and come back.
That's all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. And there is one more thing we wanted to say about Penn Forest. It is not just a space for the friends and family of people who are buried there. It is also a farm. They offer flower picking, goat yoga, forest bathing walks. You can also just go for a stroll on the grounds. They've got a couple great events coming up later this year, like a Day of the Dead ancestral ceremony on November 1st and a winter solstice celebration on December 21st. We will drop a link in our show notes where you can learn more about their upcoming events. As Deanna says, it is not just a space to go grieve the dead, it's also a place to live. And if you appreciate the work we do here, telling you about spaces that you might not otherwise know exist, you can support us by becoming a CityCast Pittsburgh neighbor. Just go to membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Talk to you then.
We are kind of like currently looking for an addition to the yoga teacher family. And so that interview process is really fun, you know, because one time we couldn't do the interview at the farm. We had to do it here for some reason. I can't remember why. And so Amy, one of our yoga teachers, had to pretend to be a goat every now and then just to kind of give the sense of chaos, you know, because it was going too well. You know, like the yoga class was going too smoothly. And Amy's like, no, this teacher needs to know the chaos. And she, I think, tried headbutting with Nancy or something like that.
That's
you know?
unhinged.